Now, my Irish side wants to remind you that weeping is permitted, but a little laughter now and then is required. Oh, and the German side wants to remind everybody, if we sit up straight until another bell works. Now, I have to start with a little promise I made to Mom many years ago. Because, you know, the Irish talk about their wake for years ahead. And this was a little story that it tickled her so much when it happened, and it tickled her every time she thought about it or talked about it later. She was a young sprat, maybe late 70s, and this was at Patricia's house, and she was engaged with her children in the backyard, her grandchildren in the backyard as she normally would be. And this is what tickled her so much. This visual of Patricia standing on the back porch, arms akimbo, incredulous. Mother! Get down from there. She was trying to climb the rope ladder to the kids' treehouse. So, you know, as humorous as that was, it was a little bit of a foretelling about a shift in relationship. The person who cared for so many would in a few years be the one cared for. And I tell you, did Patricia and Eddie ever care for her? I mean, they gave her personal care and a wonderful place to live to the very end when she was diagnosed as terminal and needed hospice care. I tell you, of all the things Patricia and Eddie have done professionally, they could add nurse to that resume now. They did a good job. Mom was born in 1918, before the invention of radio. Yet she lived to Skype with some of her grandchildren who were far away. With Zach when he was stationed in Okinawa, and at her bed at Calvary Hospital. When her eyes lit up and she smiled and said, Sierra's name. When she heard her youngest on the computer screen all the way from New Zealand. She was raised and worked on a farm in Ireland, in a home with a packed dirt floor, no electricity, no plumbing. The stories about walking to school for miles were classic, but they were true. She came to the USA in 1947, and that was quite a few years before she had planned to, because the death of her sister-in-law left her brother's children without a mom. She raised her dear Mary and Ann, and would eventually help them to come to the States also to raise families of their own. And she grieved so when she lost them. Because they were like daughters to her. She married in 1952. In 1960, she promised my father that if he voted for John F. Kennedy instead of Richard Nixon, she would become a U.S. citizen. She remained a citizen of Ireland her entire life. And she remained a loyal, loving wife, for better and for worse. And that is what defined Mom, love. The most fitting way I could think to eulogize her is with the scriptures, where we see how God's definition of love describes so well the life that was Mom, Grandma, Mama, Auntie, Elizabeth. Or as they called her in the old country, Lizzie J. Now, I really don't think you could attend a church wedding without hearing the love passage from 1 Corinthians 13. Since Mom was the epitome of love, it is certainly appropriate to remember her like this. Mom was patient. We have so many memories of a patient mother who, despite the problems and challenges handed to her in life, managed to meet them all with calm and dignified tranquility. Mom was kind. She was consistently kind to everybody. The hospital workers, and there were a lot of them these last few years, they absolutely loved her. She was out kinding the caregivers. Families for whom she had provided childcare were forever touched by her kind heart. When we were kids, a young man named Brendan used to come all the way from Ireland to visit. She babysat for him when he was just a kid, yet he must have been there a dozen times. And if you were ever in one of those states of mind where a little kindness was the remedy, you only needed a minute or two with her to be cured. Mom never envied. Never did we hear Mom want anything but the best for others. She not only wanted her children to succeed in life, of course, but had this good-for-you attitude about anyone's success. When we were young and living on public assistance, she never envied what others had. Just made the best of what little she possessed. Mom wasn't proud. Proud of others, yes, but never of herself, although she had every reason to be. She raised 3 children on her own since we were 6, 8, and 9 years old. Her humility was a wonderful example for all of us of a woman who walked with the Lord her entire life. Mom never dishonored others. If anyone lived that old wise advice, if you don't have anything good to say nothing at all, it was her. Mom was not self-seeking. Her life can be summed up by her service to others. I can think of nothing she'd ever done, really, with the goal being her own personal gain. Unless, of course, that gain was to make others happy. Mom was not easily angered. In fact, she'd much prefer to make excuses for people than pass judgment or get angry. And she never held a single grudge that I can think of. She died at peace with her Lord and at peace with everyone she'd ever known. And that's because Mom kept no record of wrongs. If she did, I would probably be public enemy number 1. I mean, thank heaven her 2 daughters, Helen and Patricia, were saints. She never had to get them from school or hospital or police station. But you know, with all the difficulties I caused her during those blunder years, never once did she remind me of it. So it stinks for my sisters, I guess. There's no justice. Mom never boasted, except about her children and grandchildren, but that's allowed. But never about herself. Never about her wonderful surroundings that Patricia and Eddie provided for her, except, of course, to show gratitude. Never boasted. Always grateful. Mom did not delight in evil, but rejoiced in the truth. Now, she was a faithful follower of Jesus Christ her entire life. She conducted all of her affairs with honesty and integrity. And she truly inspired us to do the same. There were a couple of momisms that I really questioned the veracity of, like that cats would suck the air out of babies' mouths, or squirrels would get in kids' hair. I remember walking to school half terrified. Squirrels. And we also made believe in leprechauns, but I don't remember. Mom always protected us. I suspect this lady would have had superhuman strength if she ever had to physically protect one of her loved ones. But she was there to protect us. We knew that. We always felt safe with Mom. Mom always trusted. Now, this was especially in evidence when she had to relinquish control of her life to my daughter Patricia. She trusted me even when I didn't deserve it. And she trusted in God always. Mom always hoped. She always had an optimistic view that the Lord was ultimately in control, things happened for a reason, and everything would work out in the end. And Mom persevered and never failed us. Now, of course, I don't know this side of heaven what she first said to Jesus on that morning. On that morning of Holy Thursday. But I have a pretty good guess what he said to her. It's hard for me to do this while looking. I think I have to do it like a pre-Vatican II. I can imagine him with outstretched arms saying, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." Okay, there's a part 2 to this eulogy. Part 2 to this eulogy. Zacco, where are you? Hand him out. You know the promise I made to Mom. She used to tell me stories about wakes in the old country. Now, if somebody lived a full life like this, they mourned, but they rejoiced at the same time, complete with song. So what we're going to do tonight to eulogize Mom is we're going to sing one of our favorite Irish drinking songs. And if the rumors are true, it's a little close to home this week. So just a moment, we'll get started. Well, you know, if it was legal in New York to serve drinks at a wake, we would have done it. Hey, John. How are you? All right.
No.
You can't do it? Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Bob? Are you here? Would you like? Please come
on. I met Mrs. B over 40 years ago. Janet and I were newly married, and Mrs. B was delighted to welcome me into her family. She was blessed by members of her own family, especially Patricia and Edward, and she brought a blessing not only to them, but to their 2 kids and to my kids. She and I shared something of a background. She wasn't very competitive, and I tend to be, well, a little competitive. I grew up on a farm. I milked cows, worked for 18 years, walked a mile and a half to school. She kindly pointed out that she walked 2 miles. I couldn't beat her. And I knew she milked cows too, because she knew it all. In any event, the one thing that I was struck by in all the time I met her was how kind she was. And some of you know that my Janet suffered from a brain tumor. I was her caregiver for 34 years. Mrs. B was a great source of strength for me. Just endure, just keep enduring. Be kind, try to understand. She lived a lesson that I hope I practiced for those 34 years. She also taught me a lesson at the very end of her life. I had met her in Florida. I knew she had come back. Good Friday, I was going to come visit her. And she taught me, if you want to do something, do it now. You may not get another chance. After Janet died, I went on OkCupid, interviewed, or was interviewed by 8 women, all of them very nice to me for some reason. But I found a lady named Jean from Paris who came to New York the very year that I did. And she wrote a little email about our last visit with Mrs. B that I'd like to read. In her sweet, quiet, welcoming way, Mrs. B was a keen observer of people and relationships. Last year, Robert, she calls me Robert because her husband's name was Bob. It's hard to keep it straight. Last year, Robert and I went to visit her when she was confined to a lounge chair. She knew Robert very well, but had only seen me with him a few times. After a few moments spent with her, we took our leave. Robert bent over, kissed her, and started to walk away. As I came over to do the same, she took my hand and asked me, "Are you making him happy?" I was startled. I answered, "I'm doing my best. Do you think I'm succeeding?" She looked at me with a luminous smile and said, "I think so." I was profoundly touched by her concern for Robert, the depth of her affection. I will never forget that encounter. I'll never forget Mrs. B. Thanks.
If I repeat myself, I hope you'll give me your indulgence. I'm hard of hearing, and I've got 2 hearing aids from the VA, the Veterans Administration, that ain't worth a damn. So if I repeat something that was already repeated, forgive me. I'd like to tell you about my Aunt Elizabeth, and this is on a serious note. She was born in 1918 on a small farm in Ireland, one of 6 siblings. And each sibling, as they became old enough, hit the road. Some came to England, some came here. When it was close to her time to leave, her brother Tom, who was married and had 2 small children, his wife died. And that left Maura and Angela without a mother. And Tom was going to put those girls in an orphanage. And if you've read anything about the orphanages in Ireland, they were horrendous places in those years. Anyway, Aunt Elizabeth volunteered to stay and help raise those girls. And the war came, the war went, and after the war, she came to the United States. And shortly thereafter, Maura came and Angela came. She married Eddie, and unfortunately, he got sick. She had 3 beautiful children, and she wound up raising these 3 children mostly on her own. I just learned today that Richard Riley, when his mother contacted TB and the family was parceled out, that she took Richard in and he was with them for about 10 months. In the later years, when our grandfather was not able to take care of himself and they tore his cold water flat down, she took him in and cared for him until he passed away at age 86. She also had a big hand in raising her two granddaughters, Patricia's two daughters, through the years while Patricia worked and even when she didn't work. Her greatest attribute is that she was a caregiver. And any of you who have ever been a caregiver knows that caregiving is one of the hardest jobs in the world. I happen to believe that there's a special place in heaven for caregivers. And I truly believe that my Aunt Elizabeth is right in the center of that today. Thank you for listening.
To my mom, son, daughter, niece, nephew were fine distinctions. She loved Mary and Anne as her own, and Jack and Mary and Jimmy